Missing someone. Missing someone. Missing someone. With all your heart.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Josette if you're new, and this is my husband Alexis. We are going to be doing my labor and delivery story. I wanted to have him be in the video as well because I've actually never seen a labor and delivery story with a husband, and although I know that the experience is very much mine, he was there through the whole entire thing pretty much, and I think that it'd be kind of unique to see his thoughts and his kind of side of the story as well. And there's parts of it that I don't actually remember from it being so intense and just so much happened. So I thought that it would be kind of cool if I had him join me on this video and we just kind of talk back and forth on everything that happened. Today is currently Easter actually, so April 12th of 2020, and I actually gave birth in February 28th, so it's been almost a month and a half, or actually it has been a month and a half since she's been born, which I know it's kind of crazy that I've waited this long. This video might actually be quite long since we are going to be talking about probably a total of 4 days that I was in labor, which seems like such a long time to be in pain. But yeah, so we're gonna kind of just go over everything, and if you just want to hear my story or our story, just keep watching and I hope you like it. Alright, so basically I gave birth, let me look on the calendar because I feel like it seems like forever ago. Okay, so I gave birth on the 28th, and so that means that my labor started on the 25th. We pretty much started the morning just like regular, right? Like It was a regular day. As you can tell, he's lost a ton of weight since the last videos that you've seen him in. He started losing weight in October because it was after the gender reveal, and the gender reveal was in September.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it was October. He started going to the gym every single morning at 4, right?
Yeah.
It was 4 in the morning, and I had told myself I was going to start working out sooner, but I just could not do it. I just didn't want to, really. And so I started going to the gym with him once I turned 30 weeks, I'm pretty sure, since I heard that walking, it does really well for you while you're pregnant, keeping your heart rate up and everything. Exercising to help you dilate, loosen up your muscles, all kinds of stuff. I started going with him, and so that's kind of how we always start our mornings. But on Tuesdays we both have off, and so we just kind of basically went later in the day. It was like 8, got up, went to the gym, and then I started getting pains then, but it was just like 1 or 2. I never, by the way, had Braxton Hicks. I know that most people start getting them around 30 weeks, 32 weeks, and can get them all the way up until they give birth, but I didn't. I didn't have any pain whatsoever. I started getting a pain that came and went. Since he had lost a ton of weight, we decided that we were going to go and, sell some of his old clothes and exchange it for some new clothes. And so that's pretty much what we spent most of the day doing. And during this whole entire time, pretty much the whole entire day, I kept getting the pains. At that point, he was in denial. He was like, no, you're not. Like,
Because I wanted it to be March.
Yeah, he wanted her to be born in March. And here we were, 4 days before. Like, he was just like, no, it's nothing. And they were so far apart, like they would get close and then they would separate. And so it was just like, oh, then they have to be Braxton Hicks too, because usually they say if it's real labor, they'll get closer together and they'll stay together and they will progress in a pattern, and mine didn't. We just kind of spent the whole day just out and about, and we actually had a midwife appointment that afternoon, and she came over and we had an appointment. She's like, I can tell that you're having contractions, but they're obviously not anything serious yet because you can still talk, you're still doing like your regular life. You might just take a second and be like, oh, that was a little painful, but overall you're okay. She's like, it could progress into real labor, but as of right now, it's nothing to be too concerned about. And I was like, okay. And she's like, I'd suggest you have a good meal, get plenty of rest, and let me know if anything changes. And I was like, okay. And so that night, I remember we had a good dinner. We went to sleep. We went to sleep early, actually, that night. It was like 7:38. It was like super early. I ended up waking up at 2 in the morning with really strong contractions. I started timing them. They were pretty close. I actually still have the app where I was tracking them. I timed my first one at 2:08, and then I got another one at 2:15, and they were about 40 to 30 seconds long. They were very sporadic. They didn't get a lot closer together until probably around 7, I think.
Yeah, because I didn't go to work Wednesday.
Yeah. Timed a couple of them at 2 in the morning, and I didn't message my midwife until 5 in the morning telling her, like, hey, they're getting stronger, they're getting closer. But she's like, okay, I'll come over and I'll blow up the pool and put the liner, get it together and everything, and check you. And I was like, okay. So she comes over. It was like 5 in the morning, 6, because he had to go to work to kind of open the store just to make sure that everything, everyone was gonna get there and stuff. She checks me and she says I'm 1 centimeter dilated. So I was like, fuck. I still have so much longer to go, and they were already 5 minutes apart for almost a minute long. So
Yeah.
I didn't understand why, because most of the time they say, once you get to 5 minutes apart for a long period of time, lasting almost a minute long, you're basically like a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I was 1 centimeter dilated, and I had already been having the pains for 5-6 hours. So she's like, okay, well, you still have quite a bit of time left. And so she left. Alexis came, and I was just basically laboring in my living room. She did tell me that she was hanging out on my right side, and usually they prefer for them to start on the left side because of the way that they turn. So she was, I guess it's probably going to look backwards, but she started on my right side, and she needed to do a full turn in order to be in the right position to birth, versus if she would have started on my left, she would have had a less time travel to turn to be in the right position. She told me that it was going to be a pretty long labor because of that. She was going to have to turn around or do a full turn. And so she told me to do a couple of different things, and so I was on my hands and knees on the birth ball trying to get her to turn around. But I definitely was having back labor. Now, I did not realize how bad back labor was until I had back labor. And I didn't think I was going to be one of those people. I just figured, it's going to be contractions, they're going to hurt, but not as intense as the back labor was. And so I had him pushing down on my lower back almost at every contraction. I was doing different positions to try to get her to turn around. The back labor was really bad. I did try to set up kind of like a little bit of a scenery here in the living room, because I didn't realize how important your environment actually is when you're laboring. I definitely feel like at night and early morning I labored the best. So basically the living room was pretty much dark, and I had my fireplace lights on, and I was just laboring in the living room. That was where I felt the most comfortable. The pain wasn't nearly as bad. The pain got worse as the day went, for sure.
Well, two of the nights, most of the night we spent in the shower.
Yeah, so I labored quite a bit in the shower, but that wasn't until Wednesday night.
Yeah.
We did that Wednesday night and Thursday. During the day on Wednesday, I pretty much labored in the living room trying to get some rest. I slept a little bit on the bed, and she would come here and there to check me. The first time she checked me, I was 1 centimeter, and then the second time she checked me, I was at 3 centimeters. We ended up going to the mall on Wednesday as well, and I was like, maybe I need to walk some more. And so we ended up going to the gym again that night, where I was walking, and she was just like, how are you doing? Like, do you feel like you're progressing? And I was just like, not really. I was like, I feel so discouraged. Like, I'm doing everything I can, doing all these different positions. He's like helping me do all these different crazy things, and I just don't feel like they're getting any closer. If anything, they were spreading apart at that point, and they were getting less intense. They still hurt, don't get me wrong, but they weren't as intense as they were in the morning. She was just like, okay, I think that this might be false labor, so let's try to stop your contractions completely. And he wanted to go pretty hard at the gym because he knew he wasn't going to go to the gym the next day. At that point, we thought that it was still going to progress, so he figured, to go pretty hard. And once she told me to stop, I was just like, okay, I'll completely stopped, right? I went and I sat down and he just kept working out. And she told me to do all these different things. Take a sitz bath, eat, calm down, take some calcium, magnesium, something. That's supposed to help stop the contractions and just kind of basically relax. When we go to Target, I'm still getting contractions, and we come home and I'm still getting contractions, and it's like they got worse and stronger and more closer together at that point. So right when she wanted me to stop my contractions, they got closer and worse, which I was like, damn, like I thought that maybe I would get a break. I was like, finally I'll get some sleep.
That was Wednesday, right?
Yeah, that was Wednesday night, and they just didn't. The whole night I labored, and that's whenever we were basically in the bath, or I was in the bath.
And I was sleeping
Pretty
on the
much
floor.
most of the night. Yeah, he slept on the floor next to me the whole night, because that was the only way that I could get relief, like sitting in the bath. I mean, don't get me wrong, the contractions still hurt and they were still painful and they still sucked, but they weren't nearly as bad as if I wasn't in the bath. We did that pretty much all night, right? Like I would kind of go in and out. It was the only way that I could get some sleep too, because they were just too intense to try to sleep in the bed. So we labored all Wednesday night into Thursday. And Thursday she checks me and I'm 5 centimeters. At this point it's Thursday morning and the contractions are stronger, closer.
And then she had came when she checked you that day, and then she was leaving.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, that was Thursday morning.
we were-
Yeah, true.
And then you were like, I want to get in the tub. And as I was filling up the water, your water broke in the living room. And then you rushed in. As you were walking into the restroom, your water broke. And she was just about to leave, and I went back downstairs and told her.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, I thought that my water broke, but apparently it didn't, and I realized that it didn't because of the way that it felt when my water actually broke right before I gave birth. So I think I just like peed myself really bad, but I couldn't control it because of the pain, and I had to throw up, and I was supposed to control my bladder at the same time. It was really embarrassing. I was pretty much in a nursing bra and Depends diapers the whole time. But I mean, it was the only way I could be comfortable. She was constantly checking me. Is right. That morning when she had came, I was like, I'm just gonna chill in the bath again. I felt like I had to throw up, and so I was like, I need to go throw up. And as I was rushing to the bathroom to throw up, I felt a huge gush of water, and that's what made me think my water had broken. So I told him, I was like, I think my water broke. And so he like ran downstairs to tell her like, hey, I think your water broke. And she came back.
She comes back. She's like, interesting.
Yeah.
And then she checks, and she's like, okay, well, let me go get some breakfast and
Yeah.
coffee, and I'll be back later.
Yeah, because I mean, I still had hours until I was actually going to give birth anyways. And I had told her too, I know that probably sounds weird that she left, but I had put in my birth plan that I didn't want really anyone hovering. I wanted him to be the main support because that's his job. I mean, I've been carrying her. I already have to labor and birth her. Like, the least thing he can do is be there through my labor or while I'm laboring. I preferred it that way, and I'm glad that I had it that way too. There really was no need for her to be here either. It wasn't like I was going to give birth anytime soon, and your own comfort of your own home. It just felt better. I labored in the water. And later that day was whenever the midwife students ended up coming as well. And my aunt was here. She came pretty early as well to help. She was supposed to film pretty much the whole thing, but everything was just so not what I expected that we didn't get really any footage of anything. Okay. If you hear any noises, she's right here. Or I thought it was going to be different, so we didn't actually get much of anything filmed at all, which kind of sucks because I do wish that we would have been able to. I think it would have been nice to have to look back on, but things just didn't work that way. But anyways, so yeah, I basically labored all through Thursday as well, doing the bath. We went outside walking.
Then that's Thursday night, whenever
Things got crazy and very intense. She checked me mid-afternoon. We thought that my labor was going to stop because my contractions were farther apart and weren't as intense, and so they left and they gave my aunt and him, oh my gosh, she keeps farting. Oh, it's okay. Gave them some medicine to give me every 15 minutes. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry for the change of frame and everything. She's right here and she's hungry, so Mom Life, I have to feed her. If you hear a bunch of noise, it's her. She makes a lot of noises when she eats. Oh, the arnica and stuff that she had given y'all to give me every 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And that definitely worked. I remember my aunt was like that the midwife had said that she doesn't know why it works, but it does. But yeah, it definitely worked. It definitely made my contractions closer and stronger. She ended up coming back. It was like 1:30, almost 2 o'clock when they left, and then probably came back around like 5-ish. They basically said that I was ready to be able to go into the pool, right? I don't think she even checked me, but she just noticed from how close my contractions were and how intense they were getting. She was just like, okay, I think it's time for you to be able to get into the birth pool. And they started filling it up. I remember at this point I was so like groggy, I guess, or like everything was just so, she was just staring at me. Everything just was starting to get really foggy because the pain was so bad at this point. I was like borderline could not handle it anymore. They were filling it up and I just was thinking in my head, like, can they hurry up? Like, why is this taking so long? Like, can I just sit in the water? Because obviously I remembered that whenever I was laboring in the water at night, like, it felt so much better. They're over here filling it up. I'm trying to get through these contractions. Everyone's like hands on deck getting the water that I'm just laboring by myself. And when they weren't pressing on my back, the contraction just felt 10 times worse. And I know he was getting tired of pressing on my back, but it was just the only way that I felt better. Eventually they finished, they get the water right, they're like, okay, you can get in. I get in, and I'm feeling okay, like the contractions definitely slowed down. I was laboring and I told her, I was like, am I supposed to start feeling like I need a push, or how am I supposed to know? She's like, well, just give it a minute, like your body will kind of tell you. And I was just like, okay. And I didn't feel any pressure, I didn't feel like pushing, I didn't feel anything crazy. I was just like, okay. And then a student midwife ended up coming to check her heartbeat, because when they're there, they have to check it every 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. They're checking her heart rate, and she kind of got worried, right? Or not yet?
Not yet.
She was kind of starting to get a little worried. She almost couldn't get it because she was so short, and the pool was so deep. She was kind of having a hard time, and obviously she was really, really low. And she was having a hard time finding it and getting a good listen of it. But they tell me to get out of the water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they tell me to get out of the water. She checks me, and she's like, okay, you're 7 centimeters dilated, but one part of your cervix is still pretty, like, I guess hard or not thin enough or something like that. And she's like, either I can break your water or you can do a couple of different things that can help. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want my water broken because I've heard that hurts, and so I'd rather do the exercises. Now at this point, thinking back, I wish I would have just gotten my water broke, because I feel like I could have definitely had her at home had I done that, because the contractions would have gotten stronger, but it would have been less time that I would have been laboring. I decided to do these different exercises, and oh my god, they were horrible. I don't know if they were helpful at all, but god, I just remember I was just in so much pain, and it was just like I wasn't getting any breaks. She had me doing one where I was like, I had one leg on a stool thing, kind of. Well, it was a box of diapers. I had my one leg raised, and I had to like squat down during a contraction. Holy shit, that hurt so bad. And then I had to go walk outside and just walk as fast as I could and walk back fast as I could. I only did that once because it was cold.
Yeah.
It was just not what I wanted to do. And it was getting dark outside. I was just like, I can't. But the third exercise was the worst. And I think that was where my breaking point kind of was as far as the pain went, because I was just so tired at that point. Like my body just felt like it just couldn't do it anymore. Last exercise was kind of hanging off of our sink in our kitchen, and I would squat down during a contraction. Oh, that just felt like someone was stabbing my back 100 times, and I'm supposed to just keep my cool during it. It was horrible. The pain was so bad. I felt miserable, and I remember I was just basically crying, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't, like, the pain is way too strong. Like, I can't do this. Right, I was just so done. She's like, okay, let me check you, and she checks me, and she's like, you're still 7. You pretty much haven't progressed. It basically didn't help. And she started listening to her heartbeat, and she's like, let me listen. to her heart, make sure that she's still doing good. And I think it was one of the student midwives that was checking it first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she told Margie, which is my midwife, hey, check this out or whatever. She's like, okay. So she, gets down on her knees and she's checking her heart rate. And she's like, oh, I'm going to check her heart through a couple of contractions. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I was in so much pain. Like, not being able to move during a contraction is probably the worst because the pain just feels so much worse. And she's like listening to her heart through like 4 or 5 contractions. Like, this sucks. This is a part where it kind of gets a little foggy for me. I remember her telling me, like, I know this is not what you want, but I think that we need to go to the hospital. Her heart rate is going down too low during contractions or something like that, or basically she was in distress is what she was basically trying to tell me. I was like crying because I was just like, I did not want to go to the hospital. Usually if the baby's in distress, that means you're getting a C-section, which is definitely not what I wanted. And I was already tired, in so much pain. We didn't have anything packed for a hospital because I just did not think that that was even a possibility. I was just like, no, I'm going to have her at home. Like, it's fine. During the time that she's telling me, she had already kind of whispered to the student midwife to let them know, like, hey, we need to start packing to go to the hospital. This is the part where I have no idea what went on. I just know they helped me put my clothes on and I went downstairs and got in the car. That was it. They kind of took care of everything else. So this is where you would come in, like, what happened during that?
Well, nothing much happened. We didn't take anything to the hospital. All we did was grab a diaper bag, put clothes in it,
Oh, yeah.
and that's it. I mean, we didn't really pack. Grabbed my wallet and left. I mean, that's pretty much all that happened. And so we drove there, got down, and then the rest was just regular hospital stuff.
It really sucked. I mean, the hospital did a really good job of getting me in pretty quick and getting everything, like, set up for me. I just remember in the car, whenever we were driving, like, I was crying and I was just like, this sucks. Like, I did not want to go to the hospital, and here we are on our way to the hospital. And I was like, I don't want to have a C-section at all whatsoever. And, you kind of have that feeling of failure in a way because you're just like, I wanted it so bad to have her at home, not have to experience the whole thing of, like, nurses coming in and out, having to be strapped to the bed, having an IV, having to constantly be getting your blood pressure taken. Like, obviously the midwife was doing those things, but very, like, long periods of times were in between. Like, it wasn't, like, constant every 2 hours or something like that. And I was free to do whatever I wanted to do. And in a hospital, you can't do that. We knew that that was going to be the best thing for her. Like, obviously, at the end of the day, what I wanted was not important. It was that she was safe and she was going to be born healthy, no matter how it was going to happen. We basically got to the hospital. They got me in quick. I got an IV. They did the whole, check-in thing. I remember telling, was it you or my aunt that was like, call my mom? I think it was Maddie. Yeah, I think it was my aunt. I was like, call my mom. I want my mom there. And I think you asked me, like, should I tell my mom? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Tell her to come. So when I got there, it was just me, right? Because my mom hadn't got there. She got there, like, right after. Like, not that long after.
Yeah.
And then his mom got there not that long after either. And I was just in so much pain. And I remember asking for the epidural. At that point, I was just like, I'm not waiting anymore. Like, my body's not progressing, obviously, on its own. Like, I need help. And I was just so tired. And I think that was, like, the main reason that my body was not progressing anymore, was because it was just exhausted. I needed rest. And so I ended up asking for the epidural. Thank God they got it for me, like, pretty damn quick. My midwife was with me the whole entire time, by the way, definitely advocating that, I still get what I wanted, or make sure that they weren't overstepping or trying to make me do something I didn't want to do. And there were certain things that I didn't want her to have when she was born. And I know that a lot of places will tell you, like, you have to do it or something. And so she was there to kind of advocate for that. I ended up getting the epidural. I remember that when his mom came in, I remember seeing her for a split second, and I just could see, like, the sadness in her eyes of, like, feeling bad at the amount of pain that I was in. But I did feel so much better after I got the epidural. I finally slept. I slept, like 5 hours maybe? Mm-hmm. No, it was like 4 hours. Because we got there like at 8 and I had her at 2:08 in the morning. Probably like around 4 hours. Actually more closer to 3 because she was checking me, and then the time that it took me to like push, and then when she actually came out was 2:08. So yeah, I was able to sleep. I remember finally feeling like somewhat rested, and I remember feeling a ton of pressure. Like it really does feel like you just have to poop. That's just what it kind of feels like. And I remember telling the nurse like, hey, like I feel a ton of pressure, like can you check me? And she came, she's like, yeah, you're at a 10. But at that point I was leaning on one side because the epidural, when they put it in, I felt contractions on the left side. So they had me sleeping on my left side to get the medicine to go to that side. But by the time that I was at a 10, because I was landing on the left side for so long, I was starting to feel them on the right. So I was like, is there any way that I could wait till I'm fully numb on both sides before I start pushing? She's like, yeah, you can do what's called labor down or something like that, where basically like you're at a 10 but you just don't push or you don't do anything. And I was like, okay, I just need enough time to get the medicine to even out or whatever. And so that's what I did. And at one point I was just like, I can't wait anymore. Like she is coming. Like there is no stopping her anymore. So I called the nurse. She's like, are you ready? I was like, yeah, like she's ready to come. And so they asked me, do you want the mirror? And at first I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't think so. And I think I was like, well, yeah, you know what? Just like have it there, but don't put it yet. Like if I want to see, like I'll let you know or whatever. And she's like, okay. And so I start pushing, like doing the practice pushing, but she was definitely coming. Like she was pretty damn low, like in my birth canal already. And I did want to end up seeing. And so I told her, I was like, oh, like let me see. She's like, I can see her head. And I was like, oh my God, like, okay, I do want to see. And so I saw everything. I saw her come out of me, which was kind of crazy. Did you see?
No.
What were you doing? I don't even remember.
I was just sitting there. I wasn't paying attention to that. I was just looking at you the most of the time.
It was kind of crazy. I mean, it was a good crazy. I'm glad that I saw, even though it was like traumatizing at the same time. We're over here and she's basically ready to be born. Her head is like staying out, because if you're a first time mom, you might not know, but when you're pushing, their head kind of comes out and then it kind of goes back in, and then it comes out and goes back in, and kind of thing. And so she was at the point where her head stayed out. So if I was pushing anymore, like she was gonna come out. And the doctor wasn't there yet. So she's like, okay, you can do like little pushes every other contraction. And I was like, okay. The doctor ended up coming. What was it, like 1 or 2 pushes, and then she was out. Like that was it. And my mom and his mom were both able to stay in the room. I had told my midwife that she could go home. She basically have been helping me through it for the last 3 days. I was like, I can only imagine how tired she was. There wasn't anything else that she could do for me at that point. So she went home. My aunt ended up going home as well because the nurse had said only 2 people could be in the room. And my mom and his mom just ended up getting lucky. They were there. They just kind of stayed in the back and just kind of let me and him kind of be there. They did see everything, but they weren't like there, which was kind of nice. And she ended up coming, and it was 2:08 Friday morning. She weighed 6 pounds 8 ounces, and she was 20 inches long, and she was just the tiniest little thing. She's grown so much already, but she was just so tiny, such an itty bitty little thing. And she had a ton of hair.
That's the first thing they said.
Yeah.
A lot of hair.
Which is kind of gross, but when she was still like inside of me, the nurse, she was like, she has a lot of hair. And I was like, no way. And she's like, yeah. And she like grabbed her hair while she was still in my vagina and was like, yeah, she has like an inch of hair. And I was like, oh my God. Like a nurse had no shame. She was just like, checking how long her hair was, which I didn't think she was going to have any hair actually, because I didn't have any heartburn. I only had it maybe once or twice during the whole pregnancy, and she has a ton of hair. So she was completely healthy, and we stayed in that room for 4 hours. Then we got moved into a regular room. That was pretty much it. We ended up leaving Sunday.
Yeah,
Sunday afternoon.
2 days after.
We took her home. That was our little chicken nuggets story. Oh, and I don't think we even ever said her name, but her name is Adelaide Calliope Saavedra. I guess I can show you guys her now. I might insert some clips of when I did this the first time, because she was even smaller than she is now. She was like 2 or 3 weeks at that point. But this is our little nugget. Oh, you wanna look in the front? Look at the camera. Is you so sleepy? Yeah? Are you looking at all your clothes? The camera's actually in her closet. But this is our little nugget. She looks so big. Little Miss Adelaide. So, yeah. And that's it. I can definitely do a video on postpartum or something, or I'm definitely going to start vlogging more now because I want to remember all these moments while she's this tiny. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Let me know if there's any videos that you want me to do. I can definitely do that. And yeah, until the next video. Bye. This is little Miss Adelaide. So, yeah. Oh, that's a big yawn. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. She's gonna start crying.